Benito Mussolini, April 29, 1945. The man who ruled Italy for 22 years is hanging upside down by his feet from the steel beams of an Esso gas station in Milan, and the crowd has been there since dawn. 2 days earlier, Mussolini had tried to escape to Switzerland in a German convoy, wearing a Wehrmacht greatcoat over his uniform. Partisans stopped the column at Dongo, on Lake Como. He was recognized within minutes. The Italian Communist Party leadership in Milan voted to execute him without trial. On April 28, Walter Audicio, operating under the code name Colonnello Valerio, drove him and his mistress Clara Patacchi to a small road outside the village of Mezigre. They were shot against the wall of Villa Belmonte. The bodies were loaded into a furniture van that night. The van reached Milan before dawn on April 29. The bodies were dumped at Piazza Loreto, the same square where the Germans had executed 15 partisans the previous summer. By morning, the square was full. The crowd kicked the corpses across the cobblestones. Women fired pistols into the bodies. Several men urinated on Mussolini. A woman emptied a sack of stones at his face. When the local fire brigade arrived to control the crowd, they did the only thing that would lift the bodies out of reach. They strung the corpses up by the ankles from the metal beams of an Esso gas station forecourt. Mussolini did not lose Italy because of one defeat. He lost it because the system he built rewarded only one outcome: total victory. When that outcome stopped being possible, the system had no use for him. Piazza Loreto was the system signing the paperwork. Hideki Tojo, September 11, 1945. The former Prime Minister of Imperial Japan is bleeding on the floor of his own living room, and the American medics who just kicked the door down are deciding whether to save him for the gallows. Tojo had run Japan from October 1941 to July 1944. He had ordered the attack on Pearl Harbor. He had presided over Bataan, Singapore, and the camps along the Burma Railway. When MacArthur landed at Yokohama, Tojo's name was first on the war crimes list. At about 4 in the afternoon on September 11th, U.S. Army counterintelligence officers arrived at his house in Setagaya. Tojo had spent the morning marking his own chest with a charcoal cross over the heart. When he heard the Americans at the gate, he sat down at his desk, picked up a Colt .32, and fired through the cross. He missed. The bullet tore through his stomach instead of his heart. Major Paul Krauss was first into the room. He found Tojo conscious, blood across his shirt, an unsmoked cigarette in his hand. Krauss called for a medic. Within an hour, an American Army surgeon was working on Tojo on his own dining table. A transfusion of Class B blood drawn from an American GI kept him alive through the night. He recovered in a U.S. Army hospital. He stood trial before the International Military Tribunal for the Far East. On December 23, 1948, at Sugamo Prison, he was hanged at 12:01 in the morning. His body was cremated and the ashes were scattered at sea, so no shrine could ever be built to him. Tojo wanted to die on his own terms, by his own hand, in his own house. The state he had served took that from him. He had built a country where the emperor decided when men died. The country that replaced it decided he would not. Saddam Hussein, December 30, 2006. The man who ruled Iraq for 24 years is standing on the trapdoor of a hanging platform inside the Camp Justice prison in Baghdad, and the guards beneath the hood are chanting another man's name. The Iraqi High Tribunal had sentenced him on November 5, 2006, for the Dujail massacre. Saddam had personally signed the death warrants for 148 Shia men and boys after a failed assassination attempt against him in 1982. The judges sentenced him to hang. The execution date was set for December 30th. It was the first day of Eid al-Adha, the festival of sacrifice. For most of the Sunni Muslim world, executing a head of state on a religious holiday was a deliberate insult. For the new Shia-led government in Baghdad, it was the message. At about 6 in the morning, Saddam was led through the corridor of the Kadhimiya prison. The guards on the platform were members of a Shia militia. They began chanting the name of Muqtada al-Sadr, the young Shia cleric whose family Saddam had ordered killed in 1999. Saddam answered them. "Is this the bravery of men? Is this how you give justice?" His last word was the second half of the Shahada. The trapdoor opened. The drop had been calculated by hand. Saddam weighed about 75 kilograms. The rope length had been set for a heavier man. The fall tore through his neck. He was nearly decapitated. A guard filmed the entire execution on a mobile phone, and the video reached the internet within hours. The Prime Minister of Iraq had ordered no recording. The guards recorded anyway. Saddam built a state where the man at the top decided who lived and who died. The state that replaced him did the same. The only thing that changed was which religion got to operate the gallows. Maximilien Robespierre, July 28, 1794. The man who sent thousands to the guillotine over 10 months is being strapped to the same blade. The executioner has just ripped off the bandage holding his shattered jaw in place. For a year, Robespierre had run the Committee of Public Safety. He had defined who was an enemy of the revolution, and the definition kept widening. Danton went to the guillotine in April. By July, members of the convention who had once cheered him were waking up convinced they were on the next list. On 9 Thermidor, July 27th, the convention declared his arrest. He fled to the Hôtel de Ville with his closest allies. The convention sent troops. At about 2 in the morning on July 28th, government forces broke through the doors. A pistol shot tore away the lower half of Robespierre's jaw. Whether he fired it himself or whether the gendarme Charles-André Murta fired, it first has been argued for 2 centuries. The result was the same. He could not speak. He could not eat. His jawbone hung from one corner of his face. For the next 18 hours, he lay on a table in the anteroom of the Committee of Public Safety, the same room where he had condemned hundreds of others. Witnesses recorded that the wound was wrapped in dirty bandages. He drank water from a bowl held against the side of his mouth. He was conscious the entire time. At about 7 in the evening, he was carried to the Place de la Révolution. The executioner Sanson ripped the bandage off before placing him on the plank. The jawbone tore loose. Robespierre screamed. The blade fell. 21 of his allies followed him onto the scaffold the same evening. Robespierre did not fall because of one mistake. He fell because the system he built had defined treason as anything the system had not yet approved. Once the convention started writing the lists itself, his name was the next obvious entry. Nicolae Ceausescu, December 25, 1989. The man who ruled Romania for 24 years is standing against a brick wall in a military barracks at Târgoviște, and the soldiers facing him have started firing before the camera operator can roll. 4 days earlier, on December 21st, Ceausescu had stood on the balcony of the Central Committee building in Bucharest to deliver a routine speech to an organized crowd. The crowd booed. State television caught it live. Within hours, the city was in open revolt. On December 22nd, Ceausescu and his wife Elena tried to escape by helicopter from the roof of the same building. The pilot dumped them in a field outside Bucharest, claiming a fault. They were arrested within hours at Târgoviște. The Securitate, his own secret police, did not come for them. On Christmas Day, the new Front of National Salvation set up a military tribunal inside the garrison. The judges were army officers. The defense lawyer had been appointed an hour earlier. The charges were genocide, undermining state authority, destruction of public property, and the theft of more than $1 billion in state funds. The trial lasted under an hour. Elena interrupted constantly. "I am like your mother. How can you do this?" Nicolae refused to recognize the tribunal at all. The sentence was death. The execution was set for immediately. The Ceausescus were led into a courtyard against the side wall of a latrine block. 3 paratroopers, all volunteers, formed the firing squad. Before the camera operator finished setting up, the soldiers opened fire. More than 120 rounds were used. The bodies were left in the courtyard for the camera. The footage aired on Romanian television the next day. Ceausescu did not lose Romania in 1 week. He lost it because the system he built required the secret police to lie to him about how popular he still was. By the time the crowd booed in front of the cameras, the lie had run out. The system finished him before sunset.